And hello there, welcome back to Enterprise One Story Break Adventures. Yes, where I, Dr. Isix, team up with VanVelding of The Beige and the Bold and his own YouTube channel to have a writer's room sort of meeting sort of thing. And we're on to episode 2. This one, surprise, surprise, is going to be not quite a Ferengi episode. Enjoy.
So I saw Schindler's List this week for the first time ever.
Yeah.
And it has a reputation, and it exceeded that reputation. You know, sometimes I watch Star Trek Picard, and I think to myself, I'm just a bitter old man. I'm too hard. I demand all of these story elements to be in place. I demand all these character arcs, and I'm like all the squishy parts of your brain that make judgments as whether or not something is good enough, or whether you're just going to go with it, or whether you're nitpicking a little deep. I think maybe I'm an awful person, but then I watch Schindler's List and I'm like, good stories and good story structure and character arcs and payoffs. They exist. They're real things which exist. Like it can happen. I mean, you know,
Come about.
Star Trek
Be
Picard.
put all in there.
Yeah. It doesn't have to be Schindler's List. You could be half as good as Schindler's List and still, you could be a quarter as good as Schindler's List and still be good.
Should I mention I've never actually seen it? I was always kind of too afraid to.
I got a movie club. I got a movie club with the guys. We can't get together for COVID. So we're like, look, we should watch movies. And someone said Schindler's List. And we're like, it's 2020. None of us want to feel worse. It's 3 hours long. We have votes. And it won. It won the vote. Which is hopefully portentous. So I sat down and I watched it. And I kind of had to force myself to pay attention for the first 30 minutes. Like it was good. It was good for the first 30 minutes. Yeah, it kept my attention. But I was aware that I was watching Schindler's List. But after that, I was just in it. Nothing else was happening. It did not feel like 3 hours.
You got pulled in and suddenly like, holy smokes.
I'm very sensitive about overselling things. But Schindler's List, even with the reputation of Schindler's fucking List, exceeded expectations. I can't. It's worth the 3 hours if you haven't seen it.
I will have to work on my bravery on that front because, it's just sort of one of those movies like, I'm just a little too wary of just getting bored, depressed about, well, the universe, really. And
that happens.
So I've kind of shied away from it for a good long while.
That happens, but I'll be honest with you. I laughed at it. I'm not saying it's a funny film. What I'm saying is that it knows how to build that tension and then release it. If you know the story of Oskar Schindler, it's hard to spoil it. The whole story is that he saves people from the concentration camps. So it's not just like this misery guts and then everybody gets sent to the, I'm trying to think of a non-cavalier way to reference dying in the Holocaust. It's about the light and all that darkness. I highly recommend it. So let's make a story. Let's break a story.
Let's make a good story. All right.
Yeah.
So
yeah. Let's set. Do you want to talk about? Do you want to set the bar a little higher? You want to talk about Die Hard a little bit first before we dive into this?
Well, Die Hard is it's everyone's favorite Christmas music. We were not here to discuss that, but it is an interesting sort of dynamic as far as the one man versus sort of the team of bad guys sort of thing going on there. And, it's like, okay, things just kind of keep getting worse. And you have to sort of follow this guy to see if this sort of everyman sort of character is going to make it through the end and sort of, provide the comeuppance to all the bad guys there. And, there's all these sort of extra elements and, that sort of try to help both humanize him, but also encourage him as long as he weighs. And I'm kind of losing the plot here. What?
I was just asking if you wanted to raise the bar any further before we dove into this. We start making up our shitty plot, if you want to talk about.
Well, I could talk about the plot of some of the stuff I've written recently, but you haven't read that, so that's not going to help.
Yeah. Yeah. So, I mean, if there's something in it, we have a pitch sheet that we pitch from, until we get a proper slush pile from fans and whatnot. We have a pitch sheet. Is there anything in the pitch sheet that's like, hey, this resonates with what I've been working on lately?
Well, that's a kind of a good question. I did find myself chuckling at the art of entitlement that you put in there, where you got basically the one character who's just sort of like, I only fail because no one else around me believes. And I don't know, that sometimes feels like some of the stuff I'm writing, but not exactly.
Yeah. I mean, it's about, the paradigm of that. I based it on, there's a Mad TV skit, which I think is showing my age, with Will Sasso, who's great. And he's playing Steven Seagal, and Steven Seagal just watched Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon because it's the 90s. And he goes, I can do that because I am as good a martial artist as those guys. So then he gets on the little stage rooftop and he tries to jump across, and he fails and he falls. And honestly, Chris Farley was a talented physical comedian. This dude takes a series of fucking falls. It is impressive. And it is funny. But the deal is, each time he says, this will work if everyone believes in me. And then so he goes up to the camera people and he like grabs their head and he like snaps it to the side and he kills them because he's Steven Seagal. And he's like, that guy didn't believe in me. That's why it failed. So we're going to do it again. And he just keeps snapping people's necks. And it's great. Mad TV is great.
But it very much, is a thing about trying to demand that people believe in something, even if their belief is not going to affect things one way or the other.
Yes, because
more of a scapegoat sort of thing.
There is this idea where it goes, I'm going to look at you and I know you're a bad person. And everything you do comes from that presumption of your badness. So even when you do something good, you only did it because it benefits you because you're a bad person, right? It's a circular logic.
Yeah.
And alternatively, there's the presumption that people are good. And it goes, oh, well, you do all this racist stuff, but I can't look inside your head and see that you're racist. So if you say you're not racist, you just happen to be doing a bunch of racist stuff and saying a bunch of racist stuff. You can't look inside that person's head and see. And at the same time, it says, hey, look, no one is externally doing anything to stop me. I believe I can do anything that I can put my mind to. I'm failing. So it must be something that's happening in the mind of other people that's making this not happen to me, because they cannot internalize their failures or their limitations.
Indeed. Yeah, it does also kind of remind me of that, it's like you can do anything if you put your mind to it.
Yeah. And
which has some truth to it, but it is very hypersimplification of a much more complicated thing. It's like, okay, it's not just about believing things, it's about actually figuring out how to do them. But if you just sort of take it as the just believing things, then yeah, you're never going to get anywhere useful.
Yes. I watch My Hero Academia, and it kind of lives up to the hype. My enthusiasm is waning, but the opening bit is our main character everybody's born with superpowers, but he wasn't. It's a rare medical condition, doesn't have superpowers, but he wants to be a superhero, like this universe is Superman, who's a paragon, super strong, all that kind of stuff. And he wants it super bad. And so he finally meets this hero, and the hero is like, look, go be a police officer, go be a fireman. If you want to be a hero, lots of people do that without having powers, without having like good powers. Some people have like stupid powers, so they aren't superheroes. They're just like accountants with like, what is that when you're double jointed, right?
Yeah,
accountants who are double jointed in all their joints. And so what it is it's like the lesson this kid has to learn. The very first lesson is it's not enough to want it a lot. You do have to put in the work to get it, and you have to put in the right work to get it. It isn't just an intense desire to have something. It is also understanding the paradigm and doing the things that are necessary, not just to earn it, but to convince society to give it to you.
But if you're sort of hiding behind this, it's all about belief sort of stuff. It's basically to shoot you in the foot over and over again. And if you get so frustrated as you going around breaking cameraman's necks, it could lead you to be dangerous to other people because of your own frustration.
So my opening idea for that was like a fake out with poor people, because everybody's very willing to believe that the poor are entitled to things. Like we're ready to believe that. So I thought, what if we do a fake out there, or whatever planet or space station or Cleon colony or Ferengi colony ship or whatever it is we go to, like we're like, oh, it's the poor, they're entitled, they want things, and they seem like luxuries that they want, and the story slowly morphs into being about someone else who was initially on our side, we were on their side, and we're like, oh, the things that we're seeing are actually because they can't internalize their failures, and their failures are being projected onto other people.
So I guess then the question is that I have for this sort of plot is this sort of person who is at first supposed to be on the good guy's side, is that are they an internal to the ship, or are they someone who is sort of outside, sort of being introduced like a Planet of the Week sort of thing?
That's like a foundational question of Star Trek.
Is it their own damn fault, or is somebody else's?
Well, classic Star Trek says the flawed people are outside of us, and therefore we are elitists, right? We've got our stuff together, and we look down on other people. Those are also the characters we're supposed to relate to every week, which gives us the vision that we, whatever our collective we community that we envision watching the show alongside of us, that we've got our shit together when we self-evidently don't. That was one of the great things DS9 did, is DS9 said, the Federation's got flaws. Our collective has flaws in it. And, like
people are trying to be their best, but they are not going to necessarily get there.
Yeah. It's just, understanding that the audience sympathizes with our main cast members. So whenever we make our main cast members these developed, evolved people, we say, well, it's flattering the audience, I think, excessively, and it's not quite right. So do we stop doing that, and do we have a flawed Federation, or do we kind of continue that and try to find some clever way to say, nah, you're not like these guys, and constantly say, our main characters are actually very foreign people that you might not relate to.
I guess complicate how the sort of the audience interacts with them to a certain degree, but sort of setting up if there is this obvious sort of difference between you and them, but that's okay as well, could be very useful in the long run. But that could also be its own episode, just sort of building that divide. But this particular one could, this particular pitch could go on that very easily as well.
I think, like, as much as possible, we say, no matter how evolved you think you are, you still struggle with your darker impulses. So I think make sure that those stories are directed at our crew. Definitely, I think those are ideal, because there's almost no question there. Could we do it where there's a member of a crew who is super capable, an alpha personality amidst all these other alpha personalities, who says, hey, I can't do this, and therefore I'm going to make it your problem, and then everybody else kind of has to solve around, and they have to find a way out to get through to them, or something like that.
Well, to a certain degree, I think the prime example of type A personality who would be willing to delegate is, of course, Kirk.
Yeah.
But that's almost too easy.
Kirk's deal. Yeah, Kirk's deal is like he's all 5 colors of magic with all their flaws and all of their merits, including his ambition. He's like, I think, the one character in Star Trek uniquely defined by his ambition.
Indeed.
Will Riker is an interesting one. He's the knockoff of Captain Kirk. And if there's one thing about his appearance in TNG, it's that eventually that part of his character just gets written away.
Kind of chills out to a certain degree. Starts playing it more safe.
Ro Laren's a very...
Ro would work well with this sort of idea. I guess also...
He's a very confident character.
Maybe a little bit more outside the core there is Nog. we've both seen Heart of Stone and all that there, and he definitely wants something better in life than what he thought he was going to have, and has been basically pursuing that by going into Starfleet, right?
Yeah. I mean, I think his things that he's always been willing to put in the work, though.
And so, well, I guess maybe he's sort of forgotten that for some reason, given the uniqueness of the situation that they encountered at the start. And so it also is then maybe having him questions like, wait, this is something I've been sort of always believed to be true about this particular sort of situation, and I suddenly realize it's at odds with this other stuff I've come to accept about how one has to do sort of progress in the world. So it can be sort of a character development as far as him sort of coming to terms and basically having to decompile this sort of bad attitude he has in order to come to a more cohesive self.
I guess.
A little more of a stretch, but yeah.
I don't want to pull out a third TNG character.
Go for it.
Wesley. Wesley is a character that people see as being handed things on a silver platter. If you watch the series, you see he's not. He works hard for it.
Yes.
But he is supposed to be talented, like crazy talented. Mm-hmm. Probably like a house MD when he's around a warp engine.
Yep.
If anything, his appearance in Journey's End is indicative of that. Maybe Julian Bashir, who's literally gifted, who literally says this stuff could come easy to me.
No, I have a couple ideas as far as Bashir goes that are, I guess, a little bit divorced from this particular plot. But yeah, hint involves Khan.
Okay, go on.
The short of the long that is, it's not a full pitch yet. I was thinking about it last night. And, it's like, okay, so what if they were to meet the find the Botany Bay in this this particular universe here,
as you do,
and wake up Khan and Khan it's like, wait, you're one of us. You should really be on our side, and sort of try to lure him in and try to convince him. And we also find out maybe somebody else on the crew is also genetically enhanced or something like that. Tom Paris.
I'm sorry, I don't. I was really just thinking about Dr. Bashir making out with Khan Singh.
Well, yeah.
I mean, I put him into the position of Lieutenant Masters, where initially he's like, "Hey, they're sympathetic, they're my guys," and then eventually he's like, "Oh no, but I'm a good person."
Yeah, and so ends up rejecting the call of join us in our Superman craziness here, and it's like, no, I kind of like having friends and like being a good person and saving people's lives. So, no.
Yeah.
Anyway, back to the entitlement there. I think, I guess Wesley and to a certain degree Riker are probably the ones I'm leaning more towards at the moment as far as sort of the main characters there. Either would be good, honestly. Just
What if we throw a wild card? Someone we wouldn't expect. Someone who's maybe not as characterized. Someone we don't want to give characterizations being shit. Well, all right. Let's just say Will
Pulaski.
Wright. I mean, Pulaski would be an interesting pick. I don't know if you can throw Pulaski any further under the bus for Star Trek fans. It might be a good. Oh wow, Spock would be an interesting one. But no. Yeah. So, all right. So this character. So initially, all right, we can't really have the poverty fake out in the beginning. Oh, that would be interesting. You mentioned Nog.
Mm-hmm.
There's the episode of Bread and Circuses, the original series. They go to a planet and it's overrun with Romans, right? And
yes.
They have television, and a ship captain went to the planet because the ship was in distress. Went to his crew. The crew was all killed in the Galactorial Games. What if Nog isn't initially on board the ship, but they find him? So, he's crashed on a planet, and he had to survive, and he's tried not to break the Prime Directive, but he made the best of the situation on the planet he was on. Obviously, he does. I mean, maybe they look like Ferengi. Who gives a shit, right? There's a million planets where the aliens look like humans. Let's have a planet where the aliens look like Ferengi. Who gives a damn? And so he goes there, and he's gone natives, and the natives have gone Nog a little bit, kind of like that. And so they have to kind of bring him in.
and sort of extract him without screwing things up to a certain degree. This does remind me of that one Voyager episode of the Ferengi, but he'd be much less exploitative.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, the damage might even be a little more subtle, right?
Yes.
I mean, he's not selling anyone anything they don't want.
Mm-hmm.
Right? That's a classic refrain of salesmanship. But the fact that he has the sociological backing of Starfleet Academy to back him up gives him just this crazy advantage of being able to understand what these people need and how to appeal to their basest instincts, whether that's good or bad. And so he's maybe like a benign cult leader. Maybe he runs a charity.
Well, it could be a business, could be a charity. I don't think a cult would be really something he would do unless he got sort of pulled into it through an outside force. It's like, oh, you are the one with the biggest ears, and thus you are foretold to be something like that. But that kind of gets back to that one Voyager episode again.
I mean, he's just selling life advice. He's selling goop. He's selling a new better way to look at the universe.
Yeah, so he's basically a consultant.
I mean, yeah. I mean, I don't think cults necessarily need to be Christian or religious.
Mm-hmm.
A cult can be a philosophy and a way of thinking.
True. So Nog the consultant, is sort of, I guess, preaching the Starfleet gospel to a certain degree, and but yes. He ends up leaning too hard on the, if you believe everything will be great, then everything will be great, and it's sort of bad vibes that are going to be affecting you and things like that, and people start interpreting it a bunch of different ways, and then he tries to correct them perhaps, and there is a should there be sort of an active antagonist or just the situation as sort of what's going on there?
I think maybe there's a situation where Nog is like, I can't leave these people. The damage I've done, the damage of my sudden disappearance from this would be devastating. And then they're like, hey, like whoever the science officer in charge is, could be Picard. And he's like, all right, we've looked at the damage. The damage that Nog has done extends to almost every facet of this culture. We can't leave here until we've done something to amend it. And then and then we go to commercial, because it's like he was right after all. We've looked at the numbers, and if we leave now, it's worse than trying to stay here and fix it.
Yeah, it's like our sociological model says that by taking him out of the situation right now, it'll inevitably lead to a collapse, because there's so many different interpretations of what he's talked about sort of going around, and they're going to lead to a larger conflict. And so either you have to figure out a way to get him to offer up the correct advice, or to convince everyone to, like, maybe this sort of way of magical thinking isn't sort of a good thing to be going with from the get-go.
There's another pitch in here called John Gill, which is based on the original series episode.
Oh, yeah.
Where
the Patterns of Force.
Yeah, Patterns of Force, where a sociologist and an anthropologist from Earth, from the Federation, goes to a planet and says, hey, you guys are all messed up. What if I give you a little Nazism as a treat? Just the good parts, though. And it turns out that Nazism is like a package deal. But, like the pitch, it kind of repackages that as like a heroic one man with a 23rd century education reshaping the society. And then we kind of roll into the whole, that kind of controls an illusion bit. So what if we mash those together, and it's not John Gill? We don't get to do a callback, but it's Nog. A Starfleet officer who is, I forgot his rank in that. Crewman. Who's a crewman? Okay.
Maybe has Nog. That's what I had down here, but okay. I mean, that was maybe the old list I was looking at, but crewman, maybe. I'm probably thinking.
But ensign, crewman, whatever works for the story. I think having a full-on Starfleet education implied by an ensign is probably better. So he crashes on the planet, like that's our teaser, and it's like 2 years ago. It's at the bottom. And then they're all like Ferengi. And so he's like, hey, what's up? And then, he's all disheveled and stuff. And he looks up and like his ship's breaking up or whatever. And he goes to a cubbyhole and he tries to find someone else. And he's like, triangulate any other Starfleet signals. It's like no signals found, and boom, we're done. And then we cut to the Enterprise. So Nog, when they get there, Nog is like, "Hey guys, look what I've done. I've survived, provided there are no follow-up questions." And,
I've survived, guys. Thanks for dropping in to help me. Also, could you go back in maybe 6 months, maybe?
yeah.
What's going on? And so he can be evasive at first, and then what's more sort of unfolds like, wait, okay, what the hell happened here?
And like it's reasonable that he did all of this to survive. We may get to some point in the episode later where we're like, that's when you went too far, buddy. That's when you went from surviving to maybe making a little profit. So he builds this movement, whatever it is, the Nog consultancy, if you like, and there are all these people, maybe millions of people who are interested in it, who are following it, who are working with it, and they're like, we want to take him out. And then Nog is like, well, you can't take me out. It's too important. And we're like, well, he's compromised. His judgment's compromised. But it turns out that they got to keep him. So then we kind of roll into our second act, which is where it's like, well, how do we mitigate damage to the society? And Nog is our front man because he knows everything, right?
Yes,
but
he knows what's going on and could potentially screw up any attempt they have to try to fix things, because he does have all the information that he could sort of manipulate as far as that stuff goes. And so should probably be some aspect to convince him that what they're doing is the right thing to do, and that's part of his character development along the way.
Right. He has to get on board with them. But in the end, maybe the closer for the second act is that we realize, holy crap, Nog's perception of cause and effect is warped because he's been, this billionaire consultant leader for, the past year and a half. And so all of the things that are going wrong with our different plans and our different things that we've done. So all things that are going wrong with the plans and stuff we've done. And this episode could take place over weeks or even months. It's the fatal flaw is that Nog is attributing the flaws in his own actions to the flaws in other people. So his model of how the world works is explicitly based on other people screwing up. And you get this throughout the episode. Like, hey, you've been out of the loop in, survival situation for 2 years, maybe more, maybe 5, maybe 7, maybe 2, whatever works.
We got a screwy timeline, doesn't matter.
Yeah, just like whatever makes it feel good. Maybe that's why he's having all these conflicts with the crew. And so you're like, wait, we put together his conflicts with the crew, right? I'm doing everything right. You're fucking this up. And then we go, our problem's getting this planet weaned off of the Nog consortium. The Nog consultancy. It's the same problem. Nog can't accept that he is the one who is making mistakes here. He's talented, obviously, but the deal is he's not entitled to success. He has to internalize his own failures and limitations.
He's so bought into his own vibe there that you can't quite see beyond it anymore. He's been so steeped in it, preaching it as the truth, that he can't see anything else at this point. And maybe before that he was only partially there, but has gone slowly full in on the deal.
Right. So then we need an act 3.
So we've kind of come to this realization then that he needs to sort of internalize that, oh, I actually am the asshole here. So what does that mean as far as action? What does that mean as sort of character development? Is this going to be a thing where he figures this out at the beginning of the act or at the end of the act? And that will kind of determine to a certain degree how we sort of progress through that third bit there.
I actually hadn't thought of that. My thought had been is that everybody else realizes it. And the third act is applying the fix to Nog and the planet simultaneously, but that might be a little bit much. You're right. The end of the second act might be Nog makes a breakthrough of his own accord, right? And then the third act is him using that knowledge to clean up the mess.
It's like, well, you've trusted me, consultancy here to give you all this good advice, but sometimes circumstances change, so here is the next bit of advice, and yeah, be okay with screwing up. It's fine.
I think that's a little bit much. I think we need to work backwards, right? And so issue is Nog says, hey, the problem is that I have been attributing a problem to these people that was actually my problem.
Yeah.
So they are better than I think they are.
Mm-hmm.
So I will create a solution based on them being better than I think they are. And then we need to see if that works.
I like that.
And it may work like 80%. I feel like in one thing, it's like, oh, it doesn't work at all. It fails. Oh, it's so sad. But there are consequences, or then you go, oh, it works perfectly because it's a fucking Star Trek story. Nothing bad happens. Yeah. Happy endings. So like it works 80%. Right. So it works 80%. But he has a massive economic/social movement, which bad things will happen if he leaves, unless he does something which trusts them. Right?
Yes. Just, I guess, to a certain degree, is leaving in its in the totality, being willing to, requires them to sort of trust the people they are leaving behind, and so I guess maybe the trick is handing over full control over to them in some sort of more like very serious fashion, as opposed to like, yes, I'm going away now and just keep doing the thing again, and sort of doing the sort of, it's like, oh yes, this important figure from our past is said to do this, and then we're just going to keep doing that forever. Now that sounds kind of bullshit. So
I may need to riff. I may need to set limits on how often I get to riff on existing Star Trek stories. What if we invert the John Gill thing? So in the John Gill story, the Nazism kind of got away from him, and ideologues took it over. But what if like that's Nog's concern, where he's like he wants to destroy the movement because it shouldn't exist without him. They'll mess it up. They'll pervert the message, right?
I see where you're going here.
He's been poisoning the message the whole time. So what he needs to do is he doesn't need to destroy it. He needs to like let it go and not just leave, but like pass it on. And to let people know that he is a flawed person with flaws, so that he like has to create fakes of his own failures, like fake leaked audio or whatever, that kind of destroys him as the leader of that movement. That kind of destroys him as the leader of that movement, right? And then,
so basically drum up some controversies, and they could be complete fabrications, but they are going to erode some trust in him specifically as the great leader.
Yeah. And again, I feel like I'm channeling that episode of The Orville with the social media plan, which was one of the worst episodes of The Orville. But it kind of needs a redemption. Every episode of The Orville needs redemption, man. I try so hard. Anyway,
I guess then the question, another question would be, what sort of things would erode trust in that at that sort of level of scope here? This would have to be something specific about this culture or civilization. That's it's like, it could be they have a taboo against heavy drug use. Maybe there's some weird habits or ritual sort of stuff that they all sort of follow. Dog had to sort of learn real quickly. But if you fail it at all, it means you're a terrible, immoral person or something like that. Or could be something other else as far as that goes. That could help sort of bring color to the society that he's pushing around.
What we can do is, because we can say put anything in that slot, and that's good. We can also make it anything that Nog would hate to say about himself.
Ah, yes, good point.
You know what I mean? I feel like that's just rubbing it in. Like it almost feels sitcomish. Where it's like, oh, it's the thing that Nog hates. He's got to like fake that he is that person. But in order for him to like let go of his ego, he has to.
Yeah. So I guess throughout a lot of DS9, Nog has had to go out and basically ask people for help in order to get pushed forward in his life. Asking Cisco for like helping get into Starfleet is just one of them. We also asked Jake's like, hey, I don't really know how to read, so could you help me out on that? And so I guess the question is, does he feel good about that or bad about that, about having to ask people like that?
I mean, I think he's reluctant to show weakness, but he's always really good with people. He connects with people. Mm-hmm. What he doesn't like is being left out. He joins Red Squad. He's like a social person, but the effects of this are that he's left out. Like, what does Nog think of Nog?
Yeah, that's a very good question.
He's such a plucky, hardworking, brave motherfucker. I can't. He thinks he's good with women whenever he's not.
Mm-hmm.
I think he realizes he's grown. All right, just a pitch. What if they're like a rogue Ferengi world? Or like they're descended from the Ferengi or whatever? No. It doesn't matter. If he's just a traditional, misogynistic, materialistic Ferengi, that he's just another Ferengi. You know, like it's a very egalitarian society. So Nog is misogynistic against women, right?
Yeah.
Where I think of other things. You know, the Ferengi cheat their business partners, and they laugh about it. They kind of revel in being evil, which isn't Nog.
Indeed.
Nog is about making good deals, but he's not making them honestly. Yeah. We're not going to fake.
This is kind of wandering off a bit. And so basically rebuilding the entire character from scratch.
All right. So I mean, the thing that Nog has to do is to be a traditional Ferengi at them. So
well, he is kind of, I guess, you know, he feels uncomfortable with that sort of traditional sort of thing in total, and basically doesn't want to be that because for various reasons, and knows he's not going to be very good at it, but and so he's throughout his life has already sort of rejected this, but to kind of go back then and try to do this as far as sort of showing his own flaws. It would have to be, I guess, tailor-made to be the things that Nog is still about that are still in that sort of traditional Ferengi mold that he's kind of still ashamed of, and wants to sort of, and is sort of amps those up perhaps to an extra level than he's used to. But these are still things that he is, whether he likes it or not, still kind of has going on inside of him. So perhaps not the full stereotypical Ferengi, but the things that are very still such that follow along with as far as his personality goes.
Okay. So it's like what? What should we do with that? Which ones?
Well, I guess the thinking is ladies' man is probably the first bit there. Later on he sort of becomes a little more chill on that front, but is still very much a someone who wants to sort of get with the ladies and thinks he's good at it to a certain degree, but it's not really coming from a point of misogyny. It's more of it coming from a sort of a greed sort of thing, specifically that this is sort of something that I need to desire, and I do desire it, and I'm going to sort of pursue this. Consequences be damned in a certain degree. Another one, I guess, maybe coming down to very, I guess, Ferengi sort of cultural sort of, not really attached to a lot of stuff like the eating habits, things like that could also be a thing because he still likes Ferengi cuisine, for instance, and if that's sort of forbidden on this world or something like that, that could be something to sort of pull out.
What about beetle snuff?
Beetle stuff, yeah.
Right. So I don't know why Zek does beetle snuff, other than the fact that it's just tobacco, which is self-destructive and, for our purposes, let's just say ecologically irresponsible to harvest, like smoking cigarettes, which is one. So what if we go with treating women like property and status symbols, and smoking cigars, which I think is kind of like anti-cult behavior. And also against like whatever elevated ideas he'd be pitching as like a federation, running a federation ideology consultancy or whatever.
Indeed. It's like, this is too much of a self-indulgence that is destructive to yourself and those around you. Thus, it's forbidden.
So the society would be egalitarian, where it's very much against misogyny and the sharp division of the sexes. it would also be, although it exists, probably within the upper class, perhaps emblematic of the upper class. Your have your beetle snuff or your cigars or whatever that are expensive and self-destructive and ecologically responsible, etc., etc. And those would be the things that, we establish the culture as generally not liking, Nog's consultancy especially being against, and then that's how Nog has to destroy his own image to release them from his control.
Yeah, it's like, these things I've been sort of preaching against. Yeah. Whoops.
Okay, so we got like 10 minutes left. I don't say we're on timer, but we're at the 15-minute mark.
Yes.
So we still want action. We still want drama.
Well, I guess as far as drama goes, do you want to be mainly interacting with people he's met before on Deep Space Nine, or a little bit more diverse cast?
I mean, anything that we can. I'm a big fan of Deep Space Nine spaghetti episodes, where they put two characters in a runabout and you'd see how they interact, and sometimes it worked, like Chief O'Brien and Dr. Bashir, and sometimes it didn't, like Odo and Dax. So I'm a big fan of looking at all the characters we've got, especially characters outside of DS9, and going, which one of these guys have an interesting interaction with Nog?
Well, I guess my first instinct would be to put him up against a Vulcan of some sort.
Yeah.
Because, there's... And this will kind of come to that, logical conclusion about, it's like, oh, yes, if he just sort of vanishes, something terrible will sort of happen, sort of extrapolation from that.
I mean, that'd be Spock. We do need a social scientist here to kind of give us our first act closer and to kind of be our point man for the social sciences. So
true.
I envision Picard as a social sciences guy, but Spock is one of those characters that kind of does all of it. So
yeah, so Spock would be a good option there. Another, I guess, option would be Diana Troy, because we already have established that Beta Zeds can't really read Ferengis very well. Right. So she's sort of having to sort of grasp it, around in the dark as far as her interactions with them would be from the very get-go. But then complicated with all this other business, and she's trying to figure out the psychology of the situation as well, and can very much be sort of the leverage point that sort of helps him realize, oh, I am the asshole here.
Yeah, I mean, she is in the Mission Specialist Division, which is sort of the division of Miscellany. So, I mean, that could definitely be... Whoopsie Doodles with a prime directive could definitely be in her wheelhouse. And she'd just be the guy assigned to this. Are Deanna Troi and Spock on the same shift? No. You know who is on the same shift as Deanna Troi? Fucking Saavik.
Oh, yeah.
She's half Vulcan, half Romulan. So, that's not a bad take on it.
So,
Ro Laren's in there to season.
Should we have both, all three perhaps be... deeply involved in this plot? Perhaps Saavik being this is the logical conclusion of the situation. Troy looking at the psychology of it, and Ro being like, "We need to do something, guys. Come on."
I have Ro attached to security. Chief O'Brien's on that shift. I would just kind of push his head gently down off a frame because he was here last week. He was front last week.
Yes.
Saavik was too, but to a lesser extent. So I would say, Scotty and Nog. These are almost all winners, really. If O'Brien Nog hadn't been done to death in DS9, I'd say, there's still no reason not to. I retract my desire to push O'Brien off screen. But Julian Bashir's a name we kicked around for being an egomaniac. Same with Ro Laren. Saavik's got the Vulcan thing. Scotty's an interesting guy because he's passionate. He's a hard worker. I think there's a lot of threads there. And I think you can kind of pull them all in at 1 minute or other. And I assume Scotty's going to be the guy who's eventually going to say, pull the trigger, do it this way, guys. Yeah. Because he's kind of ahead of the shift. So
he's in command unless Kirk shows up. So, yeah. And he is the most competent member, of the Enterprise crew. So,
I mean, he's a tough guy. So, but he's just like the shift head. So, if there's one shift who hangs with something that's going to be working with Nog, like, hey, look, Nog, welcome aboard. we're going to be trying to solve this problem. You're going to be working with Epsilon shift or whatever. Then, then that way we have a reason that he's going to be working with them. And eventually he'll be rotated into a different shift.
Yes.
But I think all those characters give us really good things where Bashir... Huh?
The Torres is also on that one, or am I looking at the wrong list here?
We might have different lists. I don't know how we got different lists. So yeah, I may have rebalanced some things. I may have done gender balancing after I made that. Or maybe I've got the old list. Regardless. So yeah, what does your list have?
For Epsilon Shift, it has Scotty, Troy, Bashir, O'Brien, Savick, and Torres. Though the Enterprise editions I was thinking about, because I'm slowly getting to know the crew better there, to maybe also toss Mayweather and Reed onto Epsilon Shift as well, potentially.
You're watching Enterprise?
Yes. I have decided by this point that Archer's the bad guy. But anyway.
Yeah. How bad is the pandemic in Ohio? Is it bad?
It's a bit on the spooky side. Some weeks a little bit better than others. I guess I'm in a quarter of the state that is near one of the hot spots, given I'm near a major city, but I guess it could be worse because it could be one of the other major cities. So
yeah, I was facetiously asking.
Yes.
What could have driven you to watch Enterprise? You can watch Schindler's List. It's got to be more uplifting than watching fucking Scott Bakula go, oh, man.
Oh, boy.
That's my impression of art. I've only seen like a dozen or so episodes of Enterprise. But that is my impression of Archer's diplomatic skills. Yeah. Come on, guys. Stop fighting.
Well, that seems very much in his first season, second season. I'm just going to be an asshole. His third season is I'm going to be a psychopath.
Oh, God. Jesus Christ.
Yeah, so so that's where I'm at right now, third season. Anyway.
Jeez. I mean, Shuttlepod 1 was okay.
Yeah, that was a pretty good one, yeah. I will say that there are some really good episodes, but there's also some moments of like, what the hell am I watching?
What the hell? Have they been have Archer and T'Pol been captured by rednecks yet?
There was the recent episode I watched where they went to a cowboy planet. But I don't think they were captured by rednecks there.
Okay, they crash, I think, in the middle of a war zone, and Ambassador guy from Alien Nation has to come and rescue them. I think. I could be misremembering.
Anyway, ones with Andorians. But anyway,
probably so. Like the deal is, Star Trek Fate hack that I had. And one of my characters, one of my players, wanted to play an Andorian, so I watched all the Shran episodes. Generally good runs. Calling humans pink skins is fucking racist. Not against humans who aren't white. Yep. And then I'm like, I traded all the temporal war stuff, and I watched the temporal war episodes, which were mostly about 9/11 allegories and fucking bullshit. So, oh, Daniels is alive now because time. That is get into the pen with the Boar Queen and her three-dimensional thinking bullshit. Fucking, that's not an answer. The Joker has better excuses for whenever he comes back from the dead. Think about it. Anyway.
I prefer the Master from Doctor Who, how he comes back. It's like, weren't you dead? Yeah, but I'm back now. Seems to be half the plots with him. But anywho, yes.
Yeah. I mean, but he's the Master. He's camp. He's allowed to... Anyway. So
we got a Nog episode, and toss him in with the Epsilon shift. Can have some good interactions here. Nog has to learn to, play up his own personal failings to a certain degree in order to, disprove his paragon sort of aura with the people he's been sort of consulting with here. And I think we got the basics of an episode. Yeah. There's still the action quotient, though. Maybe someone comes after him. Well, they're like, but you've betrayed us. You are not the person we thought you were. And We're gonna like make assassinate you before all this controversy stuff comes out, so that you can be a martyr for the cause as opposed to this fallen angel.
I like that. That has real weight to it. Final act though, which means maybe a follower learns what he's doing and attacks him.
Mm-hmm.
Excuse me. A follower learns what he's doing and he attacks him. And that way we're like, oh no, this is our real tension. Maybe we don't, it will work, will it not work? Maybe what we need is, Nog's making himself vulnerable in some way to make this happen. And then, some of his followers are like, no, we can't live without you. He's made other people believe this about him, that he doesn't make mistakes. That's the people around him who make the mistakes.
Yes.
And they might actually hurt him to protect not just his image, but to protect the consolidated power which he's held and which they benefit from.
Well, maybe getting back to the the earlier core premise is that maybe they don't go after him specifically, but he thinks they are, but they go after everyone who around him that they think is failing him, that's corrupting him. And so there's this person, maybe one or two people that are basically going to commit mass murder in order to rescue him from these terrible influences.
That might actually rewind us a little bit, because that could be a mystery element, right? Because
Mm-hmm.
when he goes back to the Enterprise, he's gone.
Yes.
So maybe like there is actually like a mystery element where, people around him are dying, and the payoff of the mystery is they find who's doing it, which gives them a little more to do than study sociological reports. And so, the payoff is they find the person, and the person is like, no, you're perfect. Every time you fail, it's someone else's fault. And in doing that, they give voice to like what Nog's been doing this whole time.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And that's his moment of realization.
It's like, wait a moment. Maybe this thing I've been doing is terrible. And yeah,
I have been operating on the assumption. I have been working as though everything, my flaws are other people's flaws. So another action quotient might be he's been out of Starfleet for a while, so he has to requalify. So he has to requalify with Ro. So Ro's testing him on like phaser skills or martial arts skills or whatever. And like he fails and he blames her, but it's in the holodeck, so we can set it up with like I know it's a fake out, it's a cheat, but you set it up so that, Nog is doing like whatever, we're in media res and it's an action scene, he's got to get out of it. And he kind of fails. You're like, oh no, Nog. But then it's a holodeck and Ro's like, hey, you failed the scenario, you got to work on that before you can qualify. And he's like, no, it's your fault. This isn't the right scenario. I know all about this, or whatever.
For qualifying, okay.
So that's what you got to do. You got to, when you run your own ship, you have to qualify by knowing certain things about the systems. So if you're out of the loop for a while, maybe you have to go and you have to do tests to, when you're in the Navy, you have to periodically do physical ed tests, right?
Mm-hmm.
PFEs, PRTs, whatever you call them.
Got to make sure you're physically able to do the job.
Right. And so, it's just something like that. But for Starfleet, because you've been out of the loop for so long. So it's a way to give him a scene with Ro, gives us a little bit of action, and it gives us a little bit of the conflict that is going on, with Nog, that we're going to be getting to later.
Yeah, it basically shows the audience the totality of how it sort of is, the bigger plot is interacting with him. So I like it. So yeah. Analogies all the way down, man.
Yeah.
All right. I think I could work with this. This is a pretty solid sort of beginning here. Anything else we need to sort through here, or are we good to go?
That's all we got. I'm good.
All right. I'll see about getting you a synopsis as soon as I can, and then we'll roll forward with things. How about that?